Millions of people around the world are taking advice from AI. Maybe you are as well. But how far are you willing to go? Imagine you're on an old wooden ship centuries ago. You have a map. The map has edges, and past those edges, the cartographer wrote a single sentence: "Here be dragons." For a long time, trusting the map meant staying alive, and ignoring it meant sailing into darkness. Now flip that idea. What happens when the map itself starts drawing new coastlines faster than you can understand them? That's the question hiding underneath trust in AI. Most people remember the moment an AI beat a human at Go, but fewer people remember why it shook people so deeply. Lee Sedol had just watched AlphaGo place a stone on the board that made no sense. Move 37. A shoulder hit at the fifth line. Every commentator watching thought it was a mistake. Every grandmaster in the audience winced. This was a move that violated 3,000 years of accumulated Go wisdom. The probability that any human being would make this move? 1 in 10,000. When AlphaGo versus Lee Sedol happened, it wasn't just a loss. It was a betrayal of intuition. At one point, the AI made a move that experts described as wrong. Not risky, not creative, wrong. It violated centuries of human logic, and then it won. Later, humans tried to explain the move. Some said it was genius, some said it was probabilistic luck, some said it was seeing patterns too large for us, but the honest answer was quieter and more unsettling. We didn't really know why it worked, we just knew that it did. The move came from a way of thinking that wasn't human, not emotional, not symbolic, not story-shaped, alien, and yet superior. That's where trust begins to fracture. Because trust used to be built on explanations, on reasons, on chains of logic that could be followed from start to finish. But now we're facing systems that can arrive at correct answers without leaving footprints we recognize. And that leads us to a much older story. Consider the story of Abraham and Isaac. Abraham is told by a higher power to do the unthinkable, sacrifice his son. There is no logical explanation. It violates every moral and parental instinct he has. But Abraham prepares to do it because he trusts that the source of the command has a perspective infinitely broader than his own. He trusts the black box of the divine. He doesn't receive a spreadsheet. He doesn't receive a justification. He receives a command. And the entire weight of the story rests on one thing. Does he trust that the voice knows something he cannot? The question that has haunted theologians for millennia isn't whether God was cruel. It's whether Abraham was right to obey without demanding an explanation. Was his trust wisdom or madness, faith or fatal surrender? We're about to find out. Here's the thing about AlphaGo that most people misunderstand. It's not that the machine calculated faster than Lee Sedol. Chess computers had been doing that for decades. What made Move 37 different is that AlphaGo developed intuition. It played millions of games against itself and emerged with instincts that contradicted everything humans thought they knew about the game. The commentators called its style alien. Not wrong, alien. The machine wasn't playing Go the way a human would play Go, if they were just much better at it. It was playing a different game entirely, one that happened to be Go, but approached from angles human cognition apparently cannot reach. Abraham couldn't ask God for explanations because God's thinking was, by definition, beyond human comprehension. We might be entering an era where AI can't explain itself for the same reason. Not because it's hiding something, not because it refuses to share, but because the explanation would take 1,000,000 lines of code, reference patterns extracted from more data than any human could process in 1,000 lifetimes, and ultimately rest on mathematical intuitions that have no translation into human language. When AlphaGo made Move 37, its creators said something haunting. We have no idea what moves it will come up with. Its moves are an emergent phenomenon from the training. The moves it comes up with are out of our hands, out of their hands. The people who built it couldn't predict it, couldn't explain it, could only watch it win. Imagine a world where life becomes a quiet competition of faith, not faith in the religious sense, or maybe exactly in the religious sense. Faith in something whose reasoning transcends your ability to evaluate it. the willingness to act on instruction that cannot be justified in terms you understand. A space program announces a lunar colony. As the AI tells the first child, "You're going." He packs his bags, no questions. The second child weighs the pros and cons. The moon seems cold, isolated, far from everyone he knows. The Earth has problems, sure, but it's home. He stays. 2 decades later, the moon colony, through some sequence of events the AI foresaw, perhaps resource scarcity or a shift in global trade, becomes the new Silicon Valley of the solar system. It is wealthy, clean, and thriving. Earth, meanwhile, has become a stagnant slum, struggling under the weight of the choices made by people who only did what felt logical at the time. The second child watches shuttle launches on his screen and wonders what his life would have been. In this hypothetical future, the winners aren't the ones with the highest IQ. They are the ones with the highest trust queue. We might find ourselves in a world where logic is a liability. If you only do what you can logically explain, you are limited to the speed of human thought. The more powerful an AI becomes, the less human readable its logic becomes. To get the benefit of its power, you must give up the requirement of understanding. Intuition is rewired. Our gut feeling was evolved for the savannah, not the era of quantum computing. The kid who followed their gut stayed on Earth. The kid who followed the alien logic ended up in the stars. The binding of Isaac ends with the knife unfinished. An angel calls out. A ram appears in the thicket. Abraham's trust is rewarded, but only after the blade was raised, only after the commitment was total. What if the AI era works the same way? What if the rewards only come to those who commit without seeing the ram? What if hesitation, reasonable hesitation, human hesitation, becomes the thing that separates those who inherit the future from those who inherit what's left? This isn't a prediction. Nothing here is certain. These are shapes in the fog, paths that might exist, doors that might open, but the question is worth sitting with. If you cannot understand the reasoning, if you cannot verify the logic, if you can only observe that the alien move wins again and again, at what point does skepticism stop being wisdom and start being the thing that keeps you on the wrong side of history? Lee Sedol retired from professional Go 3 years after his match with AlphaGo. He said the AI was an entity that cannot be defeated. He didn't mean it had more processing power. He meant it operated according to principles that human Go players couldn't incorporate into their own play no matter how hard they studied it. The machine saw something. It still sees something. And increasingly, machines like it will see things in medicine, in markets, in career paths, in relationship choices, in 1,000 decisions that shape human life. Some people will demand explanations and receive silence. Some people will trust the alien logic and find themselves on mountains they never would have climbed alone. And some people will discover that the future isn't coming slowly, unfolding at a pace that gives everyone time to evaluate and decide. The future is a voice in your ear telling you to pack your bags. In that future, the competition isn't about intelligence. Everyone has access. It's not about resources. They're abundant. It's not even about effort. It's about trust calibration. Who is willing to follow guidance they don't fully understand, and who insists on explanations that arrive too late to matter. And this isn't about blind obedience. Sometimes the AI won't explain because the explanation would take longer than the opportunity lasts. Sometimes it won't explain because its reasoning doesn't compress into human language at all, and sometimes it won't explain because even it doesn't know how to narrate what it did, only that the outcome is statistically sound. That's already true today. There are systems making decisions no one can fully unpack, and yet we still accept the results. So the question isn't whether we'll trust AI. We already do. The real question is how early and how selectively. We like to think we're in the driver's seat, but if the car knows the road better than you and the road is covered in thick fog, at what point does taking the wheel become an act of self-destruction? We are moving toward a horizon where the most successful among us might be those who treat their algorithms like Abraham treated the voice in the desert. It's a terrifying thought, giving up our agency to a black box, but the alternative might be staying behind in a world that made sense yesterday, while the rest of the species moves into a future that doesn't make sense until you're already there. The era of explain it to me is ending. The era of because I said so is returning. The future isn't a destination you can see on a map. It's a country that doesn't exist yet, and you'll only find it if you're willing to pack your bags for a place you don't even believe in. Which brings us back to the beginning, to the edge of the map, to the blank space, to the place marked with warnings instead of directions. Because in the end, the biggest divide may not be between humans and machines, but between those who wait for the map to make sense and those who step forward while it's still being drawn.